Hey everyone, this is David Brown with the migration update for April 26th, 2023 from the Braddock Bay Hawk Watch. Let me start with reminding you that the Bird of Prey days is this weekend, Friday through Sunday, and I'll have some more information on that at the end of this video. There's a link down in the description. There was some early morning rain that ended by the time I got to the Hawk Watch around 9 this morning, but it stayed gloomy for a couple of hours. And then as we reached the midday, the sun began to come out, and we actually had a pretty decent flight of hawks there for a while. Eventually, the wind shifted from the light westerly winds that there had been to a northeast lake breeze, and that pushed the flight line in. For those first few gloomy hours, there wasn't much hawk activity. We did have a few sharp-shinned hawks, such as this juvenile. Here's a group of ruddy ducks out on the bay. And hanging out with them were 3 red-necked grebes in nice breeding plumage. And red-necked grebes are our largest grebes that we have here. Really spectacular birds. Here's a juvenile bald eagle. And note how large the heads look on bald eagles. It almost looks like the head and tail are somewhat evenly balanced. When the sun finally came out, we had a pretty large group of broadwings come through. About 110 streamed right over the platform, fairly low. It's a really nice look, and then they got out behind us and kettled a bit for us, and here's a photo of that. That was followed by more broadwings and some groups of turkey vultures, and also this immature golden eagle. So notice how small the head looks, although that's partially because the eagle is looking down, so it makes the head look even smaller. Notice the somewhat curvy wings because the wings pinch in towards the body, and notice the white patches in the center of the wings. So golden eagles are much cleaner looking than immature bald eagles. The golden eagles just have 3 white patches, so it's 1 in each wing and the base of the tail. Really clean looking birds, and I always think they look a little curvier than bald eagles, which look more kind of boxy. Throughout the day, we saw a lot of small birds flying over, and this time of year, a lot of them are yellow-rumped warblers. Around 1 o'clock, the lake breeze kicked in, and eventually we lost the flight line, so we moved over to Frisbee Hill around 2 o'clock. And here's a photo from Frisbee Hill looking back towards the lake, and you can see that it was quite clear and sunny over in that direction. But if we looked in a more westerly direction, which is the direction the birds are mostly coming from, it was very cloudy and gloomy, and that kind of shut the flight down, and we never really had the flight pick back up, even though the sun did come out towards the end. We had a couple of palm warblers to keep us company. We had a good look at this merlin. Remember that merlins are small falcons, so they have pointed wings. And merlins look pretty dark because they have this dark streaking underneath, compared to kestrels, which usually look light underneath. Merlins also have a dark tail with some thin white bands, and they fly in a different way than kestrels. So merlins have a really big attitude. So whereas kestrels are real buoyant when they fly, merlins are very direct and fast, a lot of acceleration, and just very aggressive falcons. We had a few broad-winged hawks here and there at Frisbee Hill. So here's an adult broadwing. You can see that those wingtips look a little more pointed than our other buteos. Just a small, compact buteo, and a dark tail with a single wide white band, brown barring on the underside. There seemed to be a local pair of kestrels nesting somewhere over there at Frisbee Hill, or at least they're hanging out. I don't know where the nest would be, but we see them quite often when we go over. And after I left Frisbee Hill, I decided just to make a quick stop back over at Braddock Bay Park to make sure there wasn't any action happening there before I headed home. And I had this turkey cross the road in front of me, and I got some photos just as it went off into the bushes. Taking a look at the eBird checklist at Braddock Bay Park, today I had 56 species. And at Frisbee Hill, we had 45 species. Taking a look at the HawkCount report for our migrant raptor totals, today we had 83 turkey vultures, 1 osprey, 14 bald eagles, 4 northern harriers, 34 sharpies, and 3 coops. For buteos, there were 3 red shoulders, 520 broadwings, and 6 red tails. We had 1 golden eagle, and the only migrating falcon was a merlin, for a total of 670 migrants today. That brings our April total to 26,570, and our season total to 35,742. In addition to the 3 red-necked grebes, there was also a blue-gray gnatcatcher, although I didn't personally get that. My friend Kim had it at Braddock Bay Park. And we heard an unfamiliar call from a bird flying over that I think was probably upland sandpiper, but it's just not a call that I'm very familiar with. All I know is it's something that's not a usual sound to hear at the Hawk Watch, and I suspected that's what it may be, and I listened to the recording, and it sounded pretty close to what we heard. Not counting it just because I'm not positive, but that's a species that we occasionally get as a migrant over the Hawk Watch, and I think it's the right time of year. So we'll have to try to be more familiar with that call and maybe be able to spot the bird next time. The only new species for the season was the blue-gray gnatcatcher. And looking at the forecast for tomorrow, it's looking mainly sunny with a high in the mid-50s. The winds are starting out light from the west, and by mid-morning they'll shift to a northeast lake breeze that is going to increase up to 10 to 15 miles per hour as the day goes on. So I would say there might be some morning activity with that sunshine and the light winds, but once the lake breeze kicks in, that'll push the migrants away from the lake shore, so we'll probably have to move to Frisbee Hill to try to catch the flight. But I would imagine with those strong northeasterly winds that the birds will probably be either farther inland or more spread out. So wouldn't expect a ton of activity. We'll say prediction to be light to moderate. For Friday, looking cloudy with periods of rain later, high in the low 60s. Winds southeast at 10 to 20, chance of rain 90%. So it's kind of an interesting wind direction. A southeast wind is a direct headwind at Braddock Bay. So it's interesting because it's a southerly wind. You would think it's favorable to bring birds to the lake shore, but it's a headwind. So they either don't make much progress because every time they stop to soar, they get blown backwards, or sometimes it actually keeps the birds really low for things like sharpies and kestrels. So we'll have to see what happens. We'll keep an eye on that forecast. But I would expect some activity before the rain hits later to shut things down. And for Saturday, we're looking at a steady light rain in the morning and then showers throughout the afternoon, high up around 60. And again, those south-southeast winds 10 to 20. So we'll see what ends up happening with the rain. But those couple days, even if it's not good for hawks, it could be interesting for non-raptors. Kind of a favorable southerly wind for migration combined with rain, which can knock down migrating birds. Could have some interesting rarities show up. So hopefully you can get out birding and find something good. Okay, so once again, the Braddock Bay Raptor Research Bird of Prey Days for 2023 is this coming weekend, Friday through Sunday, so April 28th through the 30th. You can find the full details at the Braddock Bay website, bbrr.org. And it says, meet live hawks, falcons, owls, and more. Experience the migration at the Hawk Watch. Activities for the whole family, both indoors and out, and one entry donation for the entire weekend. So $5 for adults and kids free. And different local businesses and conservation organizations that will have informational booths include the Birdhouse, Genesee Valley Audubon Society, Rochester Birding Association, a Frog House, books by Randy and Nick Minotaur, the Wolcott's Wildlife Rescue on Sunday only, and Braddock Bay Bird Observatory. And if we go to the second page of this PDF, which is linked to on the website, you can see the different events scheduled starting at 6:30. Doors open on Friday evening. So at 7 p.m., there's a Birds on the Move, Migration at Braddock Bay presentation. And then at 8 p.m., there will be a sunset walk and evening owl prowl. And again, the weather's not looking great, so we'll see how that affects things. And then looking ahead for Saturday and Sunday, you can see the full details there, and I'll probably cover them as we get to those days as well. And barring inclement weather, I'll be out at the Hawk Watch on the Hawk Watch platform, so come out and say hello. It says from 10 to 2, but really, we're out there pretty much the whole day. So stop by and say hello at the Hawk Watch platform. All right, well, it looks like we'll get some sunshine tomorrow, and then after that, it's looking quite rainy for maybe 6 or 7 days. Looks like it'll be well into next week before we see any sunshine again, and most days have at least a little bit of rain in the forecast. So a little unfortunate as we come into the Bird of Prey Days weekend, but I hope you will still come out and join us for all of the activities. There's many activities that are indoors, different presentations and informational booths, so don't let the crummy weather keep you away. Hope you can come visit us this weekend at the Braddock Bay Hawk Watch. From Lyco Birds, this is David Brown. Thanks for watching.